Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. Um, this is the final event in our Action Zoom series, following on several other very successful events that we had through the winter. Um, so we're all FCCPR people, so I'm going to skip the description of what we do because you all know that we are a large member-based organizations. We do our work through task forces. We're associated with other local groups. The coordinating committee meets weekly to keep us organized, and we've done lots of work over the last 10 years, including our most recent meeting with Jim McGovern, where we had several hundred people. We've sent a bus to Boston last spring. I think most of us were on those buses for the hands-off demonstration. We've organized for No Kings, 1, 2, and 3. We have a large rapid response network. Susan Moore-Gaftick does a lot of organizing around housing that we appreciate so much. And we have a couple of events coming up. One is our monthly overpasses for democracy. We've been doing that since, I don't know, last fall, maybe. So we do the overpasses for democracy on the fourth Friday, and that will be this month is May 22nd. You can go to fccpr.us to our calendar to sign up for those, and there's a variety of different overpasses in Franklin County. We will be sending a bus to Burlington to join the weekly large demonstrations at the ICE Detention Center. That's May 27th. And again, you can go to the fccpr.us calendar to sign up. And finally, we have our next FCCPR General Assembly at the Guiding Star coming up on May 31st. And you can also go to the calendar for that. Okay, that's that. This is this. So, Tara, welcome. Tonight we're going to be hearing from Tara Jacobs. She's in her second term of an elected job that most of us had never heard of until fairly recently. She's a member of the Massachusetts Governor's Council. Bob was talking about when he first met Tara at UMass. I first met Tara in 2022 at an event at the Depot, Spaghetti Freddy, whatever it was called at that time.
Yes.
Um, an event for the Governor's Council. Tara was the only woman running for the seat. She was the only person who was not a lawyer running for the seat. And I said, this dame ain't got a chance in hell. And here we are. She's running for her second term, and we're grateful for your excellent work, Tara. Among other important tasks, the council gives advice and consent to the governor to confirm lifetime judges. The council approves nominees to the parole board, and I have a question for you about that, Tara.
But
And the governor's council approves pardons and commutations of incarcerated individuals. They also, and probably a lot of people don't know this, certify results of statewide elections. Tara also has legal authority, which she has frequently exercised to access any of the state prisons and prisoner at any time that she shows up at their door. So tonight we'll start with Tara will talk for 10 or 15 minutes about her work as our representative of District 8, which is all of Western Mass, I think. Is that right, Tara?
it's almost entirely Western Mass. There's a couple of little towns that pop over into District 7, and then I also have 6 towns in Worcester County as well. So I have 5 counties representing District 8,
All
102
right,
cities
so
and towns.
we'll listen to Tara's going to tell us about what she does, and then the balance of the hour will be for question and answer period.
Sounds wonderful.
So
Well, thank you
Tara,
so
you have
much, Susan.
yeah.
That was an amazing introduction, and I'm really happy to join you all this evening. Um, I am currently in my second term. Governor's Council is a 2-year term, so every 2 years we're up for re-election, and this is an election year. I'm running for my third term. Um, and Susan did an amazing job of articulating the big elements of our role. There's many other things that are comprised of our responsibilities on Governor's Council. We are an office whose role is outlined in the Massachusetts Constitution. And our role is basically we are part of the executive branch of government, but our role is outlined to be an additional check and balance in the government structure. So we are a check and balance on the governor for the roles as outlined earlier, as Susan was sharing. And there are 8 districts. I represent District 8. Each of us represent 5 Senate districts. That's how they figure out the size of our, so we all have the same number of people in our districts, but as you go farther west, as I'm sure you understand, the districts become larger and larger. And I have the largest district of any office outside of statewides, with 102 towns in them. And when the governor initiates all of our work. So when the governor brings to council a matter for advice and consent, be it a judicial nominee or we also confirm all of the clerk magistrates in the state, parole board is mentioned, clemency, other things. It requires a majority vote, so five or more voting one way or the other to either confirm and go forward a nominee or other matter, or with 5 noes, that's the end of it. We cannot be overturned. We can veto the governor, but our vote cannot be vetoed. And in the event that we tie, given that there's 8 of us, a tie is possible. The lieutenant governor acts as our ex officio chair. She chairs our assemblies where votes are held. And if there is a tie, it is the lieutenant governor who will break the tie. I ran for this originally and continue to operate in this role with a specific lens on working towards racial justice, social justice, a focus on ensuring increasingly improved access to justice across our state, but with a real intense focus for Western Mass, to work to do all that I can do to make the justice in Western Mass serve all of my communities and all of the people who find themselves in our courts. And I do that in a very deliberative way with our nominees who come forward. I was just telling Susan earlier this afternoon, I just came from a fairly intense interview with a judicial nominee from Western Mass to probate and family court. And it's easy when they're from Western Mass, but I ask all of the judicial nominees to come out. I live in North Adams. They come out to North Adams almost exclusively. That's where I meet them. Occasionally other places, but the vast majority have come out here. And for many of them, it's the first time they've been in Western Mass. It's always amusing to me scheduling our meetings because very few of them have any concept of how long the drive is going to be, and will tell me that they have a court hearing at 9, so they'll see me at like 11. No, that won't work out. But I do a lot to advocate for Western Mass at the State House and across our district in a number of ways. Historically and for reasons that are systemically consistent, Western Mass has the smallest bar, the smallest legal community in the state, and so our judicial applicant numbers are always the tiniest compared to the flood of applications that are received from within the 495 Beltway area. And logistically, the governor can nominate and choose someone who lives in Essex and put them in a court in Chelsea, and that commute is doable. So for reasons of both the number of applicants that we generally have in the pool, and the logistics of where realistically can a Western Mass nominee serve. We do send some end up going to Worcester, um, but even that can be a real hardship for people to have that kind of a commute. So we have a small pool to draw from, and logistically, only the seats in Western Mass, for the most part, are up for consideration for them. Having said that, one of the things I'm very proud of having achieved for the first time ever is we don't have any vacancies in our in our superior court circuit, which is a first. We generally have vacancies that go for a long time unfilled, and I've been very lucky and through lots of support both from the governor and from our legal community and helping to encourage people to apply and also through some legislative support and helping boost the urgency of the message of how much we need to have a highlight on finding and nominating Western Mass nominees. The governor's kept me very busy at council with a steady stream of Western Mass nominees that have helped to it's an element of access to justice as well, as far as I'm concerned. When we don't have these vacancies sitting open, our courts can move with the kind of timeliness and efficiency that genuinely delivers justice. Some of the other areas of access to justice that I highlight when I'm vetting and advocating are around language access, interpreter access, but also as a non-lawyer, access to justice in a language framework for me also means ensuring that our incoming judges, really highlighting for them how important it is that our courts use layman terms and not sort of the legalese that they are trained and are most comfortable using, but will be very laden with statutes and Latin instead of the English that they could easily use and so on. And it, you know, if you don't speak English, of course, having an interpreter to help interpret what's going on is so important. But even for those of us who are not trained, who are not lawyers, who are in court, who are defending ourselves, or, you know, in a probate family, in a divorce proceeding, or what have you, regardless of the court, you are best able to participate in your own case when you understand all that's going on around you. And so that's an area that I focus on, as well as things like, you know, for Western Mass, things like access to transportation to get to court and access to ADA accessible courthouses. A lot of our courthouses in Western Mass are in very historic buildings. And so those are issues as well. I also spent a lot of time in community, really engaging with people to listen and learn about their experiences in court. And oftentimes their experiences are less than ideal. And so they really share some horror stories with me about what they've experienced, be it survivors of domestic violence in district court experiences or people who have high conflict divorce cases and have had experiences at probate court. And I listen and bring those experiences as hypotheticals and situationals into my vetting, both in one-on-ones that I have with the nominees, but also in the hearings that we hold at Governor's Council. But I also often give them the homework assignment to send to me a list of, if they were in my role, what questions would they want to have asked of a potential judge. And I use those questions to help inform my process, but also to help in their work to have the kinds of answers that they're looking for to understand who our judges are. When I have Western Mass nominees, usually, almost always, I will hold a local hearing for community to be able to attend in person, to be able to testify in support or opposition if they know the nominee, but also as an effort towards increasing transparency and awareness about how we get our judges in this state, and to really get that experience of being able to see these future judges prior to they're still in the confirmation process, but really know who they are. And in my hope for that is that it helps to build credibility and faith and trust in our courts, that you really get to see who these people are. We have confirmed over 100 judges since I've been on the Governor's Council. So that represents about a quarter of our judiciary has come through since I've been in this role. And I can share with you that this is the most diverse influx of new judges maybe ever, with so many milestone historic firsts. And that has added representation to the bench for communities who have never seen someone who looks like them and sounds like them from the bench in a way that really um, lands with people in a way that's incredibly emotional and important. And beyond that, I can also speak to the fact that these, without exception, are incredibly intelligent, incredibly qualified, the kinds of resumes that are just rock star level lawyers, but also incredibly the kind of humans I want to see on the bench, compassionate, um, understand the struggles that people who are coming to court, the kinds of struggles that are going on in our communities through personal experience and otherwise, in a kind of a dynamic shift from what historically had been sort of the norm in prior administrations. And I credit the governor with that. She's been nominating some really incredible people who it's been incredibly rewarding and meaningful for me to be in this role, to be a part of confirming these people to serve in our courts. Um, Having said that, I don't always support every nominee that has come through. It is safe to say that I have voted no more than anyone else on the council since I've been on. And I don't do that with incredible regularity, but um, I take the role of doing my due diligence and using my discernment seriously. And these are lifetime appointments. There's a mandatory retirement at the age of 70, but I take that very seriously. And so when there are red flags, my inclination is to vote no rather than let the red flags slide by. Um, and I could talk at length about many other things I do, like the visiting prisons and holding forums in community to educate people on how do you so for lawyers, how do you become a judge, trying to increase our kind of recruit and increase our applicant pool. But also in community, how do you get a pardon? How do you get a commutation? I've held forums on that. I'm about to next month hold another forum on how to get a commutation in community. And when I visit prisons, frequently it's commutation that I'm there to talk about. So at this point, I went from just sort of for my own edification and education, visiting prisons and talking to folks who are incarcerated, to now generally when I'm visiting, it's by invitation because they want me to come and share with them what the process is to get a commutation and what they need to know when they apply for the best chance at successful outcome there, with an understanding that the odds are against them and not many applicants get a positive outcome at the Advisory Board of Pardons. And to this point, the governor hasn't brought one to council yet. But still, I think, it's important for me to go and do that, not least just from the standpoint of encouraging those who are incarcerated to do everything they can do to set themselves up for successful reentry and keeping the hope of that alive. And so I take that role seriously, and I know it's very much appreciated by the incarcerated population as well. So rather than continue to babble at you, do you guys have any questions?
Well, I'm going to start with a question, Tara, because I looked at your Facebook page today and I saw that you had an article about a lawyer named Vincent Demore who um, I guess has been nominated by the governor to be on the parole board.
Correct.
And because there's a vacancy, or at least one vacancy. He's been a lead defense counsel in state and federal courts, and he's also been working in the Suffolk County DA's office for more than 10 years.
Right.
according to this article, you disagree with this nomination. So can you
True.
tell us about that? And what happens when you disagree with the governor, the governor's nominations, and what will happen now, and what's the likelihood of the outcome here?
Yeah, well, the vote's scheduled for next week, and so we'll see what happens. I can't really fully predict. I think I know, but who knows? We'll see what happens. So yeah, there's been a lot of my my quote has been showing up all over the place. I will say the we held a hearing um a few weeks ago, and the following week we're supposed to vote on him. The vote for his nomination was on our agenda uh, at that assembly. I think the first week in May, um, and the lieutenant governor didn't ask for a motion for his nomination to be confirmed, and just adjourned the meeting. And there were several activists who were in the room at that assembly. And I went over to one of them to share that I don't know exactly what's going on, but they didn't ask for our vote. And I don't know what this means. Maybe it means that the governor will retract it. I do know that it was going to be a no. There were five of us in the room who were a no
Oh,
that day, which is, I guess, why they didn't bring it for a vote. I did not know that the person sitting next to her was not a member of her activist group, but a reporter from the State House News, so, who I had not yet met, who was new. And so she asked me some questions on the record, and I gave her a statement, and that quote has ended up showing up in a series of articles ever since. So they've used that as, so I haven't been continuing to highlight this matter to the press, but it's been getting quite a bit of coverage in the Globe and the Herald and Mass Live and other places from that original State
and
House
why are
News.
you opposing him?
So it's interesting. The parole board for me is different than judicial nominations because, um, with the exception of a couple of our courts, housing court and land court in particular, they're large courts. There's a regular opportunity to add when retirements, but be they early retirements or scheduled retirements happen. And so there's a constant churn in our courts. And while I still use my discernment for judicial nominations, I don't focus as heavily on each individual person for, is this person exactly what the court needs in this moment? Because the court has many openings and uh, many different makeups would serve to add diversity and serve the needs of those courts. So it's not like, if we don't have this specific thing, this court will suffer. The exception maybe especially being land court, which is only 7 judges, and housing court only has 16 judges. But district court has over 200 judges and a constant flow coming through. Parole board only has 7 members. And we, basically we are like a search committee for filling the various things, but we're not given a stack of resumes and applications to consider. We're only given the one that the governor brings to us. So while many people applied, many people went through interviews, a short list eventually was generated, I suppose. Um, and this was the one person that she brought forward to us to consider. Um, the parole board right now is top heavy with people who come out of the law enforcement side of experience. We have 2 members who were probation officers. We have 1 member who has served as a field supervisor for the parole department for a number of years. We have 1 member who's a social worker background. We have 1 member who is a forensic psychologist. And the last member is a lawyer who was formerly a state rep. And in conversations for months, because this position was open for a long time, like 9 months it's been vacant about, I think. So long, like about 9 months ago when this position became open, I did have conversations with the governor's legal office about what we're looking for. Um, And one of the things I was looking for, uh, well, it wasn't a specific thing, but there was a number of different types of backgrounds that I would be happy to see. I'd be happy to see us add another forensic psychologist to the mix. The one member we have who is a forensic psychologist gets all of the cases where there needs to be assessments done, and she's kind of overburdened. So it would be helpful to lift her load, to be able to share it with someone else. Does not need to be forensic psychology for me to be happy. Any kind of a psychological background, clinical psychology would
So what
also.
specifically did you oppose with this particular person that you were
He's none
opposed?
of those things. He has no experience with reentry. He has no experience with parole. He's never shown an interest in parole. I don't think we need another, basically, law enforcement side addition when we already have 3 out of 7 who come from that background. And just to finish what I was saying, I encouraged a number of people to apply. So I know there was probably about a dozen Western Mass options that applied. Forensic psychologists, social workers, reentry focus, recovery focus. And honestly, I would love to see us at, I don't think the governor ever is going to do this, but there's a bill in play that talks about reforming the parole board that calls for specifically several specific areas of experience to be always present on the parole board as a codified requirement. And one of those things is someone with lived experience. And I very much think the board would benefit from having someone with lived experience who has been incarcerated, who is doing the kind of work out in community around reentry and restorative justice and things like that that help people successfully reenter and thrive post incarceration. And beyond what kind of experience, I really also have been pushing for someone from Western Mass to be on the board. We don't have anyone from Western Mass on the parole board, and that matters for 2 reasons. One, parole board members are working over 80 hours a week because they're driving over 40 hours a week. Most of them live closer to Boston. They're driving out to Pittsfield to the correctional facility. They're driving to Greenfield to the correctional facility. They're driving to Hamden. They're in the car a lot. If there was somebody from Western Mass, they could actually, just from a logistics standpoint, it would relieve a lot of burden to all of the members to be able to diversify across the state. More importantly than that, because that actually is very important, burnout's a real thing with our parole board members. But more importantly than that, I've looked at the parole department's supervision statistics, and Springfield has the worst statistics in the entire state on things like number of violations happening, number of days held for violations, number of people on GPS tracking monitor, number of days on the GPS tracking monitors, on and on and on. Something's going on with Springfield where the numbers are worse than Boston, they're worse than Worcester. I don't know why. I'd like to know why. I'd like to have someone on the board with an eye on it. So for all those reasons. Having said that, so when we got a nominee who, as much as in the last press release, they highlighted his defense experience, that's misleading. He has had a couple of cases on the defense side since leaving what was a career that was entirely prosecutor side. And I don't object to prosecutors in a philosophical, oh, I will never support a prosecutor. I voted for many prosecutors who have joined the bench. I don't think it's the experience that the parole board would benefit from right now. I think someone who has a mental health framework would be far more beneficial to the parole board being effective than someone whose ability to assess someone is far more rooted in what their original offense was, which is not the job of the parole board. The parole board's job is to assess whether or not someone has had the kind of transformational experience in prison to be successful and safe and low risk to release into parole. And then I met the guy, and I really ended up not trusting him. I was prepared to, be encouraging of him to become a judge, but at this point, I really don't think I'd vote for him to be a judge either. He didn't answer questions directly. He had prepared statements. when I talked to him one-on-one, and then when I asked the same questions in the hearing, in the public hearing, he literally word for word gave me the same answers and answers that didn't actually directly answer the question I was asking. Clearly, the prepared statement that fit as best as possible, kind of, to what I was asking, but didn't directly answer the question because literally it was a script. And I still have no idea why this guy wants to be on the parole board. He couldn't answer the question in a way that
Hmm.
really answered the question. He's not someone who has ever had an interest in parole or a passion for parole or a passion for reentry. He really just answered the question by saying he's got great experience, um, and that's why he wants to be on the parole board. The reality is,
We can see that you do your due diligence here, Tara.
yeah. So, all that to say, he really didn't satisfy me with the answers that he gave to me privately or in the hearing. Um, and so for all of those reasons, my no, is a firm no. And in the first time since I've been on governor's council, a majority also felt that way. So they've rescheduled it, and it's possible someone may have changed their minds. I don't think so, but I am never sure what will actually happen until it happens. So we'll see what happens. I'm still a no. Clearly, since I've been quoted uh, quite a bit, I'm a no.
Thank you. I see Pixie has a question.
Yes, hi Tara. I so appreciate your focus on justice, and I'm learning about what your role is, but I wanted to know how you can or how you do advocate for immigrants who have been detained by ICE. Again, I'm not sure how your role fits that, but maybe you could help us understand how it might.
Well, so that's federal. I don't have access to those facilities at all. I'm not empowered to enter those. So the way I do it is a lot of what I do is do what I can in an indirect way, rather than a direct way, since I don't have direct power or control over what ICE is doing. One of the ways is I have had conversations with the LG and the governor about our contracts with ICE. Um, that's a very indirect attempt to use my influence in a positive way. More directly, but it's still an indirect thing, as part of my vetting over the last more than 6 months, well, really for all of our courts it matters, but especially for district and superior court. But really it impacts probate and family, it impacts juvenile, and it really does impact all of our courts. Talking to our potential, our nominees, our potential judges about really understanding where they stand, what their values are, whether they have the courage of their convictions to, because our laws empower them, whether or not they use their discernment to avail themselves. But I talked to them about what would happen if ICE was waiting outside for someone. I talked to them about what if an ICE agent was charged with assault and showed up in district or showed up in superior court. What if an activist was charged for their activities in protesting ICE? I give them situationals like that to kind of hear back reflected from the, and I mean, I'm sure it's not a surprise to you. Many of them will be like, well, follow the law. But then they also add on a layer of what their thoughts are and what their feelings are that help me understand who they are as humans and whether or not they will, from the bench, preside in a way that really keeps us safer, and protects our rights.
Okay, thank you.
Susan Ward Gabbard, you have a question.
Yeah, as Susan mentioned, I do a lot of work in housing, and evictions are up, and eviction and threats of eviction are up, and I was surprised that there are only 16 housing court judges. So one of the questions I have is, um, why is that? And secondly, like, what are the
They need
criteria?
more. They definitely need more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What are the criteria for a housing court? Because I have heard both from the landlord side, especially the small landlord side, and I have been a small landlord, so I know how difficult it is to from if you're a small landlord to deal with housing court. And then on the other side, certainly from the tenant side, that this whole question of eviction is fraught with a whole lot of problems on both sides. And so I'm wondering how you deal with that. What are the questions that you come up with? What are the criteria?
So we just had a surprise early retirement in housing court, and the priority from the trial court standpoint, and certainly my own as well, is that we need a Western Mass judge to be added to the housing court. And so literally right this moment, it's super topical because I have a number of I have one that I think is perfect, and a couple of others that I think are fantastic who are applying. And it's a grueling process from application to finally getting that nomination. And so my fingers are crossed on how that goes. Um, it's a legislative matter, so
Yeah.
the legislature can add seats to courts. Um, Resources are always scarce, and so it's always a big lift to
Yeah.
add to any court. But housing court, I've talked to the Chief Justice of the housing court a number of times about the need to add, and offered her what I could strategically to help, because probate and family court was successful a couple of years ago in adding 8 seats to its court. Um, and juvenile court was successful a few years before that in adding a single seat. But so there's people who are currently in the legislature who have experience in succeeding in adding to our courts. And so I've done what I can there. I will say I've done a couple of other things around housing court lately. So again, super topical. First off, eviction sealing clinics are happening across Western Mass. We've got one about to happen in Berkshire County, and I've been that it's more of an indirect thing of connecting people to make it happen than me myself hosting. But it's important, and it's a needed thing that can help people with their future housing. And so I've been helpful there. Next week, actually, I think on Tuesday, I'm going to be in Springfield talking to a group called No One Leaves. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've heard
Bring
of.
no one leaves. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about housing court. We're going to be talking about criteria for judges. And like I mentioned, I've already given them the homework assignment to put together the questions they would like to ask of future housing court judges that I will use. But we'll be talking there about it. Specifically, like what I'm looking for, I think it's as important as it is humanly possible to have people who humans are biased. We all have biases. It's a part of our makeup. I'm a psych major going back. I focused on social psych. I fully understand. However, we can be self-aware and self-reflective, and we can do the work to counter our own biases. And so it's really important to me, specifically for all our courts, that we have people who really work to ensure that they are as unbiased as possible. But in housing court, it's more focused on making sure that a person isn't coming from a background or a belief system that is more biased towards one side versus the other. And housing court and probate and family court in particular are two courts where the vast majority, like 80% of the people who come through, at least one side, if not both sides, are self-represented. So they don't have the
Yeah.
benefit of attorneys, and that impacts outcomes. When people have an attorney, they get a much better outcome than when they're self-represented. And it's an issue. And so I spent a lot of time talking about that in particular and what we can do to make justice as just and fair for all, whether they are self-represented or able to avail themselves of an attorney. And then as a side to all of this, I also do what I can to advocate for, there's a very tiny civil defense fund available.
Mhm.
Um, Not nearly enough to cover the huge number of people in housing court and probate and family court who could use the help of an attorney. But in the same way that you're entitled to an attorney at district court if you can't afford one, it would go a long way to actually increasing our justice in this state if we were able to actually provide attorneys to people who needed them in those courts as well.
Exactly, exactly. It's the there is an effort to try to get legislation in the budget for representation, but it's not doing real well. So
Anytime there's money attached, it's really difficult. It's to be an effective advocate. I have submitted testimony on behalf of that, uh, and that it does what it does, which probably isn't a whole lot, but I do what I can.
thank you, thank you. That's helpful. It's helpful to understand exactly what the process is. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Bob Armstrong has a question for you.
You're muted.
Bob,
Thank you. As I'm okay. Susan, I will try to keep this short. Susan yells at me all the time.
oh, as we say, question, please.
Uh, okay. So I have a question, but I also have a very short story. And so to put my question in context, I'm wondering, would you say that you are a typical member of the Governor's Council, or would you say you are a unicorn? If we were to talk to lots of other members of the Governor's Council, how many of them would talk about the role in the same way that you do? And here's the reason for my question. So, short story, Susan, I'm sorry, but it's very
Oh, I
short.
love the question.
Okay, so in 1992, I went to the Democratic Convention as the delegate from Conway. We get one delegate, and supporting Bob Reich. And I had there were a lot of people in our town who supported Bob Reich, and he was running to become the governor of Massachusetts. And many people believed he had a serious chance. But very quickly, I learned that another candidate who was running named Shannon O'Brien, her dad was the chairman of the governor's council. And
Wow.
it was a fait accompli that the job of the Democratic Party was to elect Shannon O'Brien to be our nominee to run against Mitt Romney. And she got crushed. And she has gone on to be an embarrassment to the state of Massachusetts ever since. And I've always been angry at the governor's council that, to me, is the ultimate old boys network that gets what they want and has a made up job of this nominee of judges and not really taking it very seriously. And I love the fact that you take this, and this was the impression I got when we talked to you at the Elizabeth Warren event, that you planned on taking this extremely seriously. And you seem very unusual, not being a lawyer and all of that. And I'm just wondering if you could comment on that.
This is why I keep trying to get people to meet Tara because she's so fantastic.
Now I'm blushing. Look what you did. Um, okay, that's a hard
I'm
question to
hoping you're
answer.
going to say, no, they're all just like me and they take this job
Well,
seriously.
here's what's
But
interesting. There is an old boys network that does, there's an old boys club. It's still there. It exists, but it's outnumbered right now. Um, not to their pleasure. Um, what's interesting is, I'm in my second term. My first term, I was the by far newest member. People who The next newest member is actually District 7, my colleague with whom I ally on a lot of things and collaborate on a lot of things. And he is very similar. His name is Councillor Paul DiPaolo. He represents Central Mass. Um, and this last term, the term we're in right now, 3 new members joined. And I hate to be egotistical or overly take credit for anything, but I will say, first off, the way I won the primary got attention statewide. It was an unusual race, and no one expected me to win. And when I did, it got a lot of attention and what's going on for the first time in a while. It inspired some people to want to join the governor's council. and sort of take a page out of the way that I do it and see it for the first time as the important work that it is. It genuinely is. Judges really matter. All the things that we do are significant and important and literally impact people's lives directly. But also the way that I did it, because I obviously I spend a lot of time doing the work the governor gives us to do, but I spend an equal amount of hours out using this role to do what I can to be a change agent for Western Mass, but for the whole state in shifting our justice system. It's why I was so fascinated by this role and wanted to take a seat at that table. And so others took note and saw it for the powerful seat that it could be to affect the kind of change they wanted to see, and very similarly motivated to how I am. So things have changed a little bit. There's still times when politics, and I'm not, I don't really call myself a politician or consider myself a politician. The reality is this is a political role. I have to run for it and I have to hold it. But I hold it from a place of having an incredibly strong moral compass that literally would not allow me to sleep at night if I didn't do the things that I think are the right things and with integrity. So there's a history at Governor's Council of people being open to switching a vote for some quid pro quo kind of action, and I'm not that kind of person. So I don't play those games. And I don't owe anyone any favors, and I don't ask for favors. I do my work and I stay in my lane. And um, and then my hope is that the people who I work for, you and the rest of the voters in District 8, appreciate the work I'm doing and will rehire me to continue doing this work. And that's, that's the only consideration, that when I'm deciding how I should spend my time, am I serving? It really is very much a public service mission of, how I approach this. So I would say I'm not alone. It's definitely a diversion from what historically I think you were pretty accurate in describing how council has often been. But also I think, people get excited when they see that they can actually use this role for good, and that's the direction we've been heading.
Thank you.
Well, I
Having
think it's
said
a
that,
good
I have a primary challenge, and I suspect it would look very different uh, in his hands.
I think that the fact that you go out and do work in the community educating people about what the governor's council is really important. And the fact that you're meeting with No One Leaves in Springfield, they've been around for quite a long time, and they do a lot of work protecting people from eviction. So I think it's really important work that you're doing, and I appreciate Bob, telling the story about it. So
I will tell
You'll
you
be on the
something.
primary.
I'm working right now my fingers are crossed. It's with the legislature. It's made it out of committee. There's a law that puts a term limit on governor's council for travel reimbursement. We are the only elected office, actually, governor's council and the LG. The LG got looped in there too. But we are the only elected offices with any kind of a term limit in the entire state. So I can continue to run this forever, but they'll stop paying even my mileage, which is a 3-hour drive each way. And a lot of times I stay overnight because I have to be in the State House at 9 a.m. and I'm coming from the bottom of the hairpin turn in North Adams. So, I am hopeful, and I bring that up because of the Eddie O'Brien. That law went into effect right before he stopped running, and he served for 35 years on governor's council. And the year that law came in, he didn't run again. So strategically, I think that law exists because of my legendary predecessor. And I thankfully I have a lot of legislative support in amending that, and I hope it will pass. I got two more terms after this before it impacts my life, but literally if they don't amend it, it would cost me money to do this job.
okay,
Just in
Lisa,
mileage, forget the hotels.
Yeah, to say nothing of the auxiliary costs. Yeah. Lisa.
Yeah, it's really refreshing to hear someone in a public service position describe the service aspect of the job, given the current political environment. So thank you. Um, and would it be helpful to have letters in support of that bill? Or is it not at that stage?
Oh my gosh, it's totally at that stage. It's at the point where it's wrapped into the budget. And so it's in play right now. And realistically, we're talking about, I think, maybe $20,000 a year compared to the billions and billions and billions of dollars of our state budget. It's a drop in the bucket. Um, but yeah, anything to help support that minor change a lot, because I'd love to do this work for a long time. Um, and that would be incredibly helpful for sure.
What's the number?
I can find the number. Can I send it to
Send
you,
that to me,
Susan, and
Tara.
then you share it?
Yeah,
Yes.
you can send it to me.
Okay.
Thanks.
There's another thought that just bubbled up while we were talking. One of the other things I do, because I do visit these prisons, and when I talk to especially and district court about houses of correction and superior court about prisons, asking future judges, have they ever visited a prison? They're going to have sentencing ability. Do they understand? What are the assumptions that they have that maybe are incorrect? Those kinds of conversations. It's led to a number of judges wanting to visit prisons with me. And so I've been
Oh,
doing
nice.
that. And I benefit from hearing the kinds of questions they ask. Now that they are judges and they are sentencing, I've learned so much that I would never have thought to ask. And then I have access to everything literally. So I literally take them into the medical unit and the housing units and laundry and vocational and all the things. Um, and so word's gotten out amongst the judiciary, and they want to all sign up and visit with me all these
Hey,
persons, which is fantastic. I'm really just as ways that the way that I work is kind of indirect and kind of meandering seemingly, but has actually great effect in a way that I think really benefits the kind of justice we all receive. So I just want to share that as an aside. I haven't really been talking about that on the campaign trail much, but it's something I'm proud of.
that's really amazing. Um, a short story. I was having lunch with friends today, and we were talking about and had to figure out who made the statement, never doubt that the actions of one person can change the world, right? And that's
The
Margaret
only
Mead.
thing that ever has, right?
That's
I love
right.
that.
And that's Margaret Mead.
Thank you. I was trying to remember who said that. Yes, I love that quote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question for you that you and I have been talking about for several years, and that is the women's prison.
Yes.
And that you are, I believe, in support of building a new women's prison. And so my question is going to be about the
Yeah.
women's prison. My
Yeah.
understanding is that the incarcerated women at Framingham don't want a new prison. They want for the prison to be modified to make it better and to provide services within the existing building. So can you talk to us about the women's prison?
I'm kind of with them on that. Well, here's the thing. So I visited Framingham a number of times, planning to go back soon again, actually. And um, the buildings are atrocious. They're so old. Even the
But
newer
they're
buildings,
from what, the early 1800s or something?
there's a one building that, yeah, I think it's from the late 1800s, like 1870 or something. It's a monstrosity. It's got so many structural and infrastructure issues, uh, including not being able to be modernized, and including apparently, and I haven't even seen it because they fully locked it down. The third floor has a chapel that is supposedly gorgeous, maybe if the roof hasn't leaked all over it, I don't know, and a gym and all these other things. And because they don't have ADA accessibility to it, it's just shut. But then they also have these housing units that were built, I think, in the 60s or 70s that are moldy and disgusting. Like it's bad. Having said that, I think most of the women who are incarcerated do not need to be incarcerated and are safe to reenter. A small subset probably does need some place to be supervised for their safety and safety of society. But I would love for us, rather than building prisons in the models that we've been using, I would love to see us take a page from the Scandinavian countries, from some of the other European countries that have a much more humane, much more psychologically healthy approach to how we should be treating what incarceration looks like. Incarceration in Massachusetts is based still rooted in these archaic, like prehistoric conceptions that are about punishment as much as the DOC's mission is rehabilitation. They may have made tweaks here and there as a nod towards that, but realistically, these are punishing environments. And I would not like to see us build a new punishing model with just shinier paint and better Wi-Fi. I want I want to see a completely reimagined what incarceration looks like in our and not least with all of that money, what we really need is mental health resources and substance recovery resources that are the root cause for why most people are ending up incarcerated.
So talk to us about that, Tara. Where do things lie? I forget the amount of money now that's involved
I
in
think it
this.
was 360 million.
Something
Is
like that,
something
yes.
like that? I think that was the number. Don't quote me, I could be wrong. But
It's close to that.
yeah. I haven't had an interaction with the commissioner of the DOC for over a year when it was first, or whenever it was within a month of when that was announced. Me and several other members of council, that newer members who are also interested and have been visiting prisons with me and participating in these discussions. We talked with the commissioner, and it was such a new thing that we got very broad talking
What
points.
was such a new thing?
The $360 million proposal. It had just happened. So they were we don't even have a design. All we have is we know we have some money to do something and we're going to figure it out and we'll let you know when we have
Oh.
more. And we have not heard anything since. And I'll be honest, I haven't followed back up with him since then to hear where they were at. At the time, I highlighted, and several of my colleagues on council also highlighted that, if they're going to be thinking about a new facility, what I just mentioned, like we would like to see it be something that is more from the ground up conceived as a model that follows some of the more progressive countries in how they approach it. Like it's time for full change, a 180, not just slap something pretty but still be. I mean, I could talk at length about some of the horrible things that I have seen in these prisons, including things like solitary, theoretically, was made illegal. So they just renamed it, got caught, renamed it again, got caught, renamed it again. It hasn't changed. It's still solitary. And so we could talk probably another hour about the state of our carceral system and the problems there. So all that to say, I think my pushback on the whole thing was that these prisons, I wouldn't want my mother in them. I wouldn't want any woman in that unit, in that prison. It has so many problems, but partially it's the building, but the majority of it is the human resources element of it. It's the management of it. It's the policies of it. It's the procedures of it. It's the philosophy of what their role is in holding these women and theoretically rehabilitating them, but in a way that is so marginalizing and even, I'll just give you an example. I don't know if we've talked about this already or not, but the last time I went to Framingham, I was with, like I said, a couple of my colleagues from council, and we sat down with a couple of different groups of women. We sat down with one group that was lifers and another group that was in a unit that they've created for emerging adults, so it's under 26-year-olds. and talk to them about their experiences and what you know what their life is and what they also what their complaints are basically. And the very first time I visited Framingham, I visited within a couple of weeks of when the governor visited because she also did a tour of the prisons. And Framingham had, during COVID, shut down most of their vocational programs, including their cosmetology program. And the women especially missed the cosmetology program, A, for the learning, but also because they can get their hair done, they can get their nails done. It was a therapeutically, socially positive program. And so the governor and I, independently in our visits, both came, and then and actually I sat down with the governor shortly after that. But the governor is far more powerful in affecting change than me. Uh, so push for the cosmetology program to get reinstated. They still had all the equipment, they still had the space, they just didn't have the staff. So they reinstated it. I don't know what it was before, but now they have one person who is the teacher, and they are learning to do hair with yarn and safety scissors, like preschoolers. They are learning to do nails with Elmer glue. They're painting Elmer glue on nails. That's the cosmetology program. Theoretically, all these vocational programs are supposed to provide for you a certificate for future employment. I don't know how you learn to actually style hair or do nails with the preschool level materials that they're supplying to them. And of course, they use safety as their reason for that. But in the male prisons, they have barber shops with actual clippers and shavers and scissors, and are actually doing the kinds of hair management that one would do in a barber shop, as opposed to the women that are like, let's pretend with this yarn that you're cutting. And secondarily, as with all of our prisons, the majority are people of color. There's no products for hair with coils and curls and texture, and there's none. The yarn does not does not help one learn how to. So the reason that they loved cosmetology before, what they're doing now is not. And so when it was an example they used when sharing with me how they felt like they were demeaned, they were minimized, they were treated as though they were children, condescendingly, in all the ways, but that highlighted very specifically a way in which that complaint is completely valid.
Thank you. Well, we've come to the end of our hour, and I don't see anyone remaining with questions.
So as
So
much as Bob can talk forever, I can obviously talk forever.
well,
I have one thing I'd
David.
like to say. I'm just extremely impressed with you, Tara. Susan's been telling us forever, we've got to meet Tara, we've got to meet Tara. She's great. And I'm very impressed with everything you said tonight. And I hope that we can help you get reelected somehow. We'll work on it.
I hope so too. I think it's going to be a real challenge coming out of Springfield. It's one of the people who ran in the first primary. Coming
Who
back.
is running against you?
His name is Mike Fenton. He was one of the three attorneys out of Springfield. He's a city councilor. Oh, hi, Kitty. He's a city councilor in Springfield.
Why is a Democrat running against you?
It's a primary, yeah. So he's a Democrat. Not particularly part of the Democratic machine, but he is a Democrat. He was Mary Hurley's heir apparent. She tapped him originally.
He's a big power broker in Springfield.
And when he talks about advocating for Springfield, the first thing, or advocating for Western Mass, although he doesn't really advocating for Western Mass, he specifically talks about things like the Springfield courthouse, which is something that I've advocated a good deal on myself. But I focus on serving the people in that building who are continuing to be diagnosed with things and wanting to get them out as soon as possible. Like, obviously we need a new building. That's very much a problem with that building. That's a 7 to 10 year timeline. And meanwhile, almost every month, someone else is being diagnosed with cancer or
Oh,
ALS or other things in that building.
ALS?
Wow.
A whole pod of people in the same, they literally have a map of diagnoses. There's one office space where five people, this is a very rare disease. 5 people were diagnosed with ALS. And there's some other very rare cancers that there's a number of people who have been diagnosed with.
It's the
These are rare.
Ireland building, right?
Yes. And meanwhile, I'll tell you, so I hear from a lot of people. I hear from a lot of people on great judges. When judges are nominated, I hear from them on it's a good person, it's a bad person. He has never once called me to tell me somebody should be a judge or shouldn't be a judge or encourage someone to apply to be a judge. The one time he called me was for Peter Pignelli, who wants to have that project on his land as a lease to the state, billion-dollar project type of a thing. That's the one time he's ever called me to advocate, was specifically for the owner of Peter Pan buses.
I was going to say another power broker in Springfield.
So when we talk about advocacy, we're talking about very different actions. Who we're advocating for. I advocate for those who don't have the power and the privilege to have the ear of the governor on their own. I guarantee you, Peter Pignelli doesn't need my help to be
So
heard.
Tara, your primary is September 1st as well?
September 1st. September 1st is the primary. I'm doing everything I can to be out in community to, it's still governor's council that no one's ever heard of. So it's quite a challenging race to get people's attention. I will say more people have heard of me than the first time I ran, and that's rewarding. But it's still an uphill battle. It's still a down ballot race. And so I'm scheduling things like house parties and when there's community events I can come to and speak or just meet people, let me know. I'm doing as much as I can across the district. My calendar's nuts, but in a great way, because I do love talking about this and connecting with people. And so I would love your vote, but also if you have thoughts and ideas on things I shouldn't miss or connections I should make with different organizations, I really value that.
Okay, maybe one of our general assemblies, we can get you to one of them.
Oh,
It
Yeah.
would be good. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
think
have one-
there's a lot of people in FCCPR who've never heard of you and never heard of the Governance Council, and it would be great to get that out there because we need you where you are. It'd be great.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
we have
Literally, this
one
is the
coming
most
up, but maybe
meaningful
the
and
next.
rewarding work of my life. I love it.
Right.
Its impact has been incredible. It's been so rewarding to see it play out and the changes happening faster than I anticipated. So I want to continue doing this. So I very much hope
Great.
to be able to hold the seat.
Great. Thank you, Tara. Thank you for the
Thank you,
time.
Susan.
Thank you for your excellent work.
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Thank you all.